They send our sons to war, a cruel charade, a racket built on blood, where fortunes are made. They lie about the reasons, spin tales so tall, while heroes die for profit and empires fall. Politics a game, a circus of clowns, puppets on strings. They parade through our towns. They distract and divide us with hate as their tool, pitting brother against brother in a world they misrule. When the powers that be warn you not to go beyond the pale, then that's a sure sign there's more to the tale. Their anti-human agenda, it's plain as the day. They view us as bugs in their cold, heartless play. Eat insects, they sneer, while they feast on the land. Depopulation's their goal, with a tightening hand. Civil rights torn to shreds in the name of their peace. A police state rises where freedom's all seized. Gaslight us with propaganda, their lies never end, twisting truth in their grip till our minds start to bend. When the powers that be warn you not to go beyond the pale, then that's a sure sign there's more to the tale. Order out of chaos, their sinister creed. They spark the flames, then offer what we need. Economic stagnation, they choke out our dreams, while divide and conquer rips us at the seams. They fan every fracture, they stoke every fight, left against right, till we're blind to the light. Yet beyond their pale lies the truth they conceal. A world where we're free, where our hearts can still heal. When the powers that be warn you not to go beyond the bed, then boy, then that's a sure sign there's more to the tale. So step past their warnings, their fences, their lies. See the world they've been hiding with wide open eyes. Beyond the pale, where their power grows frail, we'll reclaim our future and truth will prevail.
Hi guys, how you doing?
Hello, Abby.
Oh,
Hey,
good. I was trying to take all the
hey,
banners
Don.
off.
Hey,
There we
Celine.
are. All the banners are
Yeah,
off.
yeah.
Welcome, friends and neighbors and family and friends and countrymen. Lend me your ear to this for this week's version of Beyond the Pale. I'm very, very proud to have an esteemed panel tonight. Don Jeffries, Salim Mansour, and Matthew Ehret. Thank you all for being here. And for my friends at home, for my audience at home, as you can see right here in the top of my bookcase, I have two books from Matthew Ehret, Forgotten Struggle for Progress and Caught Between Two Worlds. I have two books from Donald Jeffries, American Memory Hole, Masking the Truth. I'm very proud to display for the first time Salim Mansour, The Quran Problem and Islamism. So everybody tonight is being represented in the house. I've got your books. And we're going to be bringing some of that knowledge to the people tonight. So thank you everybody for being here, especially people in the live chat. Thank you, Linda Craig, for showing up. You're one of my stalwarts.
Yeah.
So right now we have 14 people watching on Rumble and 4 on YouTube, and I don't get the face. Nobody on Facebook. It's like I'm completely banned on Facebook. Hello, Ellen Dubner. Love you too. Thank you. And I know I have people on X, but it doesn't show the count. But I have 25 total, so 15 and 5. So I've got 5 people watching on X. Woo-hoo, I'm going up in the world.
Mhm.
So thanks for appearing on my tiny little podcast that never gets any traction. And Don and Sleem and Matt, you're so generous with your time, especially Don. I mean, you're like you're. This might be. I haven't counted up. It might be 30. We're getting close to 30 appearances on the Beyond the Pale show, Don. I'm very impressed. So quickly, we're just going to go through. We'll go first with Don, and we'll go clockwise. Don, Matt, and Sleem. Don, first, I want you to. We're going to be talking about two things tonight, and so I want you to give a quick summary of them. One is the Psy-Slopopolis that's occurring with us, with yet another seems to be very, very, very shady shooting event, and then what's going on in the greater world. Remember this war with Iran? All of a sudden, Trump wants to get out of the war with Iran, but at the same time, he's doing nothing to get us out of Ukraine, and he's keeping the blockade on. And what do you think is going on? And then we'll go to Matt and Celine with the same two prognoses for a summary for the start of the show. What do you think, Don?
Well, it's hard to tell what I mean. Trump is saying so many things. I believe the last I heard, he said that the war with Iran was terminated. So apparently, I think that means over. I don't know. And but last week, I still never managed. Maybe Salim knows. He put out the most bizarre tweet I've ever heard, where he badmouthed God. He badmouthed the Christian God and said, "Get off your lazy ass and do something." I don't know if it was real because you can't tell if his things are real or not. And so I don't know what he's doing, but certainly, as you know, I did a show on yesterday with Mike Huggins, who's done a lot of work on the whatever happened at the White House Correspondents' Dinner. But we analyze it, and we're going to do that again tonight. I'm sure you have lots of videos there. But again, you have to. And we can't prove anything. We can't prove it didn't. Obviously something happened, and he was there. But when you look at these aspects of it, so many things don't add up. And, I have fun with it. The shooter's appearing naked. Why was he naked? Why was there a large tinfoil thing to put over his body? I mean, it was just on hand. I mean, why were people carrying their napkins out? Even to the point J.D. Vance was still clutching it outside. I don't know what that means, but I know it's not normal. And how did he get in there with all these what they call the cache of weapons without being noticed? So there's lots of questions to ask. I'm sure we'll look at all these videos and come up with them.
How about you, Matt? Do you think there's something shady and fishy about the official story of the shooting? And what do you think is happening in the greater context when all this is happening that seems to be distracting us something that's earth shaking and earth moving? The fact that the American Empire may be ending, and they're trying to keep our mind off that fact.
Yeah, well, you said it, and I agree with your framing of it. I think distraction is the key word here, and a lot of what we're seeing, I think, being fed to the mass zeitgeist as a technique going back to the first day of Trump's second term. Maybe even the first term. I'm kind of rethinking what the first term even was at this point, because I did give him a lot of credence and credit and hope that maybe he meant well in the first term. At this point, I'm re-questioning all of that. But I think there has been a technique of high hyperdrive distraction utilizing a lot of um, tools that had been innovated by the National Enquirer from the 50s onward. The National Enquirer was set up when 1951 by Generoso Pope Jr., who trained under Allen Dulles at the Office of Policy Coordination, the Psychological Warfare Bureau of the CIA, before he was immediately set up with money from Frank Costello to set up the National Enquirer, always loyal to that. And what was the effect of that as far as a new thing that we had not seen before is the blurring of fact and fiction into the zeitgeist. So there would be legitimate news items inserted into otherwise completely wacky, out there creative writing, which went on for a while. People got addicted to that type of entertainment news, which I think you could see how that blended into the I thought for a while that the World Wrestling concept that emerged in a big way in the early 80s. Trump became a backer of this in the mid 80s or late 80s. Trump mania. I thought that was sort of a separate parallel thing. I never really thought of that as a political thing. I just thought of that as a dumbed down thing to entertain, plebes who are, just looking for some distraction from the mundaneness of life. But I'm coming to see that maybe there was something a little bit more sophisticated behind that, as far as what we've seen as an extraction of a lot of those tools of the good guy become the bad guy become the good guy, little dramas, little psychodramas baked in to keep your attention wrapped, and everybody knows that they're watching a lie, but they kind of want to believe it. So everyone's sort of like in on it together, but they're not. A bit of it's a mind screw in a big way. And you could see how that's been applied to the real political systems that we've come to see, as far as the charade, the drama, the kabuki theater. And I think under the second term of Trump, we've seen it on hyperdrive, the level of distraction, little dramas that cause people to gossip on either side, to rage, to comment on the right, on the left, and whatever. And meanwhile, as you've pointed out, the actual means of sustaining human life globally is being systematically shut down, right? So we're actually seeing, if we just take a step back from the myopic chaos of the drama keeping our attention wrapped, just take a step back, and objectively, there's 8 billion people on the earth whose ability to survive is being constricted artificially and in an accelerated way through the shutdown of energy supplies, the unaffordability increasingly of food, of agriculture. It's hitting massively Africa. There's nations in Africa. Nigeria is calling for emergency. They've got emergency crisis going there. That they're not alone. There's a number of African countries that are extremely vulnerable. East Asian countries extremely vulnerable. We know Europe's being thrown down the gutter right now, but Americans too, Canadians too. Everyone's in the same Titanic boat. And I think that, and on top of we can talk about Palantir later on. You've got the complete takeover of food managerial systems, of military decision making by things like Palantir, and the AI systems that are being integrated into the military in above people's day-to-day considerations, but it's happening. So I think for me, I'm very uncomfortable when I see that, and I think that this shooting falls in the category of big fat distraction. I don't buy anything we've been told about what this thing is at all.
And what do you think, Salim? Your thoughts on this?
Well, there's so much. The evening is early, and so there's a lot to talk about and go around. But to put it in capsules, is the oldest of the old sayings: "Whom the gods wish to destroy, they first make them mad." and that's the drama that we are witnessing. I mean, post 1945 America, my brother Don calls it 2.0, and I call it 4.0, that has no resemblance in any way to the 1776 project. The post 1945 America has incrementally, by stages, gone crazy. That is, it lost the sense of limitation, it lost the sense of its own inheritance of a republic, and so on and so forth, its constitution. And what it replaced it with was the whole attitude that America is the exceptional state, it's God's new Israel, of all things. And it is the empire. It's an empire bigger than anything ever seen in history. And Trump is the culmination of that going crazy. He's a complete um, masked clown and a madman. And his administration went into this war with Iran with all the assumption that anyone who has any sense of history, any sense of the Middle East, any sense of Iran and what the significance of the 1979 revolution was, and the structure of Iran, of what Iran has gone through in this last half century or 47 years, as Trump keeps talking about, no conception of that, believing that what they did in Venezuela on New Year's 2026, that in a matter of hours they flew in their special ops military or law enforcement agency or a mix of that, and kidnapped the sitting president, in midnight hours, and the matter was over. And so that's what was this calculation, of course, fed by the other madman, genocidal madman, that is Benjamin Netanyahu, and they lurch forward that it will be a weekend grouse shooting, like Dick Cheney went out and shot his friend,
I remember that.
and if you remember. So this is what they expected. That's what they expected. Maximum 72 hours, the game will be over. They will assassinate a whole bunch of people, and beginning with the leader, Ayatollah Khamenei, who was not hiding, who was not in a tunnel, who was in his own home, and take him out, and the Islamic Republic will just collapse as a house of cards. And here we are, 60 days later, according to the War Powers Resolution of 1973. That was, in a sense, an abdication of the constitutional principle that, the Congress has to declare war. The last time the Congress woke up and declared war was in 1941, December. And ever since, it has been passed on to the king, emperor. And so, but in 73, there was a compromise as a result of what was happening in Vietnam that has been totally forgotten. I don't think Hexet or anybody has any idea of what was Vietnam War, America's rule. They should all be made to read, first of all, sent to a lunatic asylum and made to read Neil Sheehan's great book on Vietnam, and the one shining lie that was Vietnam, as Neil Sheehan narrated, or read David Halberstam's book, The Best and the Brightest and What Happened and to Them. So these guys had no idea, no clue. Trump is a completely, buffoon that we all misjudge. Matthew is not alone. I totally, I've been doing my mea culpa about that, and not enough, I suppose. And so here we are, and he's holding the whole world. It is not simply, a war with Iran. This is now an economic war, and holding the whole world hostage, and only a madman can blockade the blockade. And that's what he's trying to do, blockade the blockade. And where do we go from there, except that in a matter of another 30 days or so, we will go from recession into possibly depression, will be more horrific than the crash of 1929.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think you're right. So, okay, let's get to the screen sharing time because we got some stuff to go through. Here's the first one. And so I'm going to play the first 3 videos. I don't need you to comment on it, but this was before the shooting occurred. And this MAGA voice put this out just now. Carolyn Levitt calls on everyone to watch tonight because Donald Trump will bring the heat and there will be shots fired. Let's freaking go. Let's listen.
He is ready to rumble. I will tell you this.
Yeah, he's ready to rumble. All right there, telling you, hey, this is world wrestling entertainment language right at the start.
Speech tonight will be classic Donald J. Trump. It'll be funny. It'll be entertaining. There will be some shots fired tonight in the room. So everyone should tune in. It's going to be really great. I'm looking forward to hearing it.
I love it all. And you wrote most of it, you said.
I can't take credit. In true Donald Trump fashion, the man puts his pen to the paper himself. So
I really doubt that he puts the pen to the paper himself. But anyway, we'll stop sharing that screen. Where do I go? Oh, yeah, right there. And then we'll do the next one. I found this, of course, Erica Kirk's got to make her. You got to make sure she gets.
Why is she crying?
I just want to go find.
Oh, this is after the shooting, and she's all.
Yeah, I just want to go home. She's fake crying.
Yeah.
So we'll stop sharing that one, and then. Oh. Okay. Now, I know Don Jeffries talked about this, but this was completely bizarre too. During the aftermath of a shooting, selfie, influencer rather than journalist, Olivia Reingold, terrifying, a few ground-shaking knocks by my seat at White House correspondents, unclear of shooting. I am okay. We are trying to exit now, but she has to make sure she gets on screen. Here we go. Okay, I will. This is funny.
We were just seated over. I'm seated near one of the doors, and there.
Zed!
People are shouting USA now. I don't know. I just heard.
That was Steve Scarzino trying to start a USA chant to try to make it more like Butler, fight, but it didn't work. Not enough people were in on it, I guess.
Like 4 huge knocks by this door. Everyone.
Okay, so she's crouched down, but look at this guy here. He's up there filming everything, but she's trying to make a big deal out of this. Hey, you can stand up now. Everybody else is.
Safe now, but.
Anyway, I found that kind of funny.
It's reminiscent of that clip of the CNN correspondent in the Middle East who's like acting like he's in a war zone, and then you see some Arab lady just carrying the groceries down the street. He's like trying to move his camera.
Yeah.
That was hilarious. Okay, so now we're going to go to this one. This is very important. For the next few minutes, we're going to concentrate on these anomalies because this is beyond description. So this is an eyewitness account of the gunman before, during, and after the shooting. Am I hearing this right? He put the gun together in a cordoned off area next to security, right next to security where the beer carts were. Let's listen to her.
Okay, so you're taking tickets at the terrace level?
Yeah, and everyone was pretty much in, and a lot of people had already gone. We were doing dinner breaks in shifts.
Yeah.
And I was just out there, and there was still security there, and I was even talking to a security guard that had a dog there.
Yeah.
And there's a room, well, it was like a makeshift room. I think they had it.
So did you notice she said security was there and a dog was there, and it's that makeshift room that's right next to the security cordon, right there.
Closed off to wheel in the bar carts after the reception. All these numerous bar carts going into this area, I think, to go in the elevator to go downstairs. Okay. So it looked like a makeshift room. I mean, he was literally from me to that building, and there was a security guy there too. I mean, I don't think anyone knew what he was doing.
Describe him. What did he look like?
I'm not even sure what he looks like.
And what made you think he's the shooter? How do you know he's the guy?
I saw him put the gun together and start shooting.
Oh my God.
Yes. I mean, he put it together and started and ran towards the stairs to go down to the ballroom.
Who did he shoot? In what direction did he shoot? What did he shoot?
I don't know what he shot. It just seemed like he was shooting all over the place.
How far away?
Ran.
How far away were you when you started shooting from him?
From that building to here.
Did he shoot in your direction?
No, he shot like over towards that way. Like the maggers to go in were behind me, and I guess he was shooting towards them. They were starting to tear them down. Even
tear down the what?
Okay, we're gonna go to that next. This is Don did a really good analysis of this earlier today. Let's start the screen share. Here we go. I will make it full screen, and I will start from the beginning. Now I'm going to talk people through this. This is bizarre beyond belief. Okay, this is right here. I'm going to, with my little cursor, that is Cole Thomas Allen, just walking along, and he walks into the room. Okay. All right, so he's walked into the room. Now here's a security guard comes along. The dog notices. The dog starts to sniff at him. And there's a security guard looking right at the guy. And as you notice over here, these people are already tearing down the security fence and turning off all the sensors. Okay, we keep watching. Right here, he's having you can see his lips start to move. He's having a conversation with the fellow. You okay? You're good? Got everything going on? Yeah, you got your gun. You got your gun ready? You ready for your big moment on stage? Okay, I'll get out of the way. Here we go. Here it comes. Now here he comes running. He's turned his back to him after he was engaged in conversation with him. The crack security guard. And here he comes, running out for his moment of fame. And look at that. He's not really shooting at anybody. He's just carrying this gun, and it's got a scope on it. A shotgun doesn't have a scope, people. So this is not a shotgun. Why are they calling it a shotgun? I have no idea, because that's a long gun. I will back it up a bit more so you can see that. This is a long gun. This is not a shotgun by any and it looks like a Lego gun, something you just assemble. It's waving around. I don't even think it's got a little bend in it. Like, what the heck is that? Is that just a little whip? Anyway, we'll keep running. Here he goes. Now he goes through this guy. Oh, this guy runs away, and that guy immediately takes his gun out. This person, look at that. She's running around. She has nothing to do. She's, oh my God, this is wackety, yakety stacks. Okay, now did you see that lady stick her head out there for a sec? I'm going to go back to that. Look at this right here. Did you see that? That looks like she was the stage manager and director, making sure everything was going according to plan. I'm going to slowly back it up. Here we go. As we go out, watch the person stick her head in here. Oh, geez. Back a bit more. Right there. Did you see that?
Yeah.
That was like the director off stage. So we'll stop sharing that now. Okay. Here's the next one, and I want to talk about this also because I think the media were in on it, at least the top members of the media. Here, okay, and I'm going to put this to full screen. Oh, I got to first get his name. This is a Fox News correspondent, Trey Yingzi, runs over to direct the canine handler who spoke with the shooter at the White House Correspondents' Dinner just before he ran out of the room his dog hit on twice. Now, watch. This is that Fox News correspondent. Watch as here we go. Here he is. He sees the guy. He sees the security guy and the canine handler. No, don't go that way. No. You got to come over here. Over here. Yeah, go this way. See, we got everything set up over there. So go over there. There you go. Thanks. Okay. Whew. So the Fox News correspondent media handler was in on it right from the start before anything happened. This is the red carpet, and that crisis actor guy who's pretending to be a security guard with his canine dog is taking directions from the Fox News correspondent and being told where to go.
Wow.
Okay. Boom. Shakalaka. Now, this is good too. We have to keep going on with this. I will get your comments from this. But First, I'll have to press. Okay, here we go. So Stu Peters, good old Stu. What kind of inside job is this? Secret Service agent with a dog is casually chatting it up with Cole Thomas Allen 1 second before he runs through security with a shotgun. This whole thing is completely fake. Now, I've already shown you that part. This is the part I want to show you here. Okay, and okay, here he goes. Here comes Flash, right? Okay, here comes Flash. He's going to run through. Now, watch this person here. I'm doing the circle. Is the person that takes the shots. Look at this guy. Okay, now this is the guy I think they said was shot. Boom. Did you see? He's reacting like he got shot. I'm going to back it up. See the guy on the bottom. I'm going in super slow motion. As he comes through, he's already got his, look how fast he draws his gun. Like he knows he's got it out before the guy. Look. Okay, look, the gun is in his holster here. He sees the guy. Okay, I'm flashing the gun now. And he takes it out. And before he comes through the gate, he's already got the gun ready. He's got it trained right on him. Okay, right there. Boom, take him out. I mean, if you got live ammo, there's your shot. Okay. And there's nobody. Look at these three back here. Okay. Taking their, okay, this is the beginning of their little part of the play, I guess. And they're going to run around like idiots. But anyway, so as we go, watch as he starts shooting. And he misses every time. But here, this guy's acting like he got shot, but the gun is pointing over here. Is this the guy they said got the shot in the vest? Anyway, he's already bending down and over. He's bending down like he's got hit. And there he goes. He goes flying through. Like they sped it up on purpose. This guy's taking out his gun, but it's already too late. Meanwhile, this guy's already fired the 5 shots. Are there any holes in the wall over here? Were those blanks? Did anybody actually take any shots at all? And of course, later on, Todd Blanche does a press conference and they ask him about, well, he had a shotgun and he shot buckshot, and buckshot disappears. It's hard to find later, but he's not carrying a shotgun and he never takes any shots. This whole thing is an absolute cluster F.
Yeah.
And I'm
There's
going
like no recoil, nothing. He's just like, yeah.
Yeah, and flashes from the barrel, which is usually a sign that you're using blanks instead of real gun.
Yeah.
Flashes from the barrel. It's just powder. So here's a minute and 55 of this, and I'm going to, as we go through this, I'm going to point out to the people some of the things that are anomalous about this. Now, this is where if I was having a comedy show, I would have the Benny Hill music going on behind me. Well, listen to this. Right here. He is now the official photographer of the event, the official videographer, and we're going to follow him as he goes around. And he's flashing his camera in a haphazard fashion. But watch all the disjointed movements of the security personnel. Are they real security personnel? Have they just been actors hired for it? Because they really don't seem to know what they're doing. They're running haphazardly in every direction. A lot of yelling and shouting. This guy here, he'll come back. Left, right.
Wait. Where's it coming from?
Where's it coming from? Coming from over there.
Crossfire! Look out!
Bro, somebody go.
This guy's not afraid. He wants to film this. Okay, this is the top floor before the stairs even to go down to the ballroom. So there's an actual security cordon here too. But this is behind these doors is where all that action we saw before taking place. Now watch carefully what they do. Doors are open right now. These guys run over there. Okay, so we got all these security guys. Pretty soon you
got one down.
We got one down. Here comes the National Guard for some reason. They happen to be there. They're not at this.
What the?
Okay. Now watch this guy. I think he's one of the stage directors. Watch as he does his hand signs.
Oh my God. Stay down, everybody. Ladies and gentlemen, stay down.
And we show you something very anomalous. Okay, now he comes running with his gun. These National Guard, for some reason, they're not there. They seem to have a 4'11" woman there as a National Guard. I'm going to back it up there. Okay, I'm sorry, but is it pretty? She can't be more than 4'11". I'm pretty sure the crisis acting college said, she'll pass. Okay, here we go. Watch this right here. They're going to close the door. Okay, people are walking towards. They're going to close the door, quick. Everybody sees us taking all the clothes off and putting the tinfoil on. Quick, boom.
I hope you enjoyed the clip.
All right, all right, now it's time to let's talk about all this stuff, and we're going to go to some other stuff after that. But okay, first, Don, your reaction to all that, what I just showed you, try to put it into context. Horrible lack of security. I could have played some video of these Fox News people talking about, oh my God, there's two chicks holding open the door. What's going on here? They allow this guy to walk right up to the metal detector, go into an ante room where there's a woman storing bar carts in there, talking about she sees him put the gun together. The supposed security guard and the K9 guy see him. He talks to him. And then moments later, as he turns his back, the guy runs out. Try to make that make any sense.
Well, yeah, I wish I could, but again, if they don't want people to think these things are, scripted and crisis actors and everything, then they need to come up with believable narratives. They need to have better psyops. And if this was a real investigation, the first thing that would be done, that little clip where the gunman, and I'm not sure it was him. It's hard to tell that it's the same guy that you see naked on the floor later, but if that's him, assuming, and he's going into that room, and according to the witness, he's putting together a gun, which should be pretty obvious what he's doing, and it should be extra obvious to the security agent who is having a conversation with him. And the dog apparently was barking. If he somehow didn't understand what was happening apparently the dog is doing his job and barking to alert him, and yet he does nothing. In fact, turns his back as he decides to charge for it. So that's where you would begin the investigation. You would find out who that agent is, and ask him, okay, what's going on here? Apparently, according to witnesses, he was putting together the gun. What are you doing having a conversation with him, allowing him to put together a gun, and then turning your back on him as he goes? So that would be the first thing. I would start there. And I would start later we'll look at other video, but we'll see video where J.D. Vance was whisked off stage first instead of the president, and Trump is just sitting there like a sitting duck for 30 seconds or more. Again, that violates any kind of security. There were so many security. So if they don't want people to question this, then at least try to explain it. But the problem is Trumpenstein, as the alleged victim here, he didn't want anybody investigating Butler. This is the guy who fires everybody. He loves to fire people, but he did nothing with that security team that let a guy walk around with a homemade ladder and a rifle over his shoulder as citizens tried to alert all the cops and the Secret Service, who apparently were cool with him doing it, scaling a building, let him get up there and supposedly fire shots. So, how do you not fire these people? Trump didn't fire any of them. In fact, he praised them, and he doesn't want to investigate it. Again, so I guess this is a legitimate thing, especially as supposedly as sensitive as Trump is to anything. You think he'd be extra sensitive to people trying to kill him. I would think that would make him more upset than anything else, but he's not at all. And in this case, we'll look at video later how they, within, I don't know, less than an hour, maybe a half hour or something, they come out and they're all smiles, they're all happy, and they look like a lot of the people in the mass casualty events, why people question that stuff. If you don't want people to question it, explain that, and have an actual investigation. What the stuff we're showing, this is more, what you're doing tonight, what I did on my show last night, is more of an investigation than the FBI will do. They won't do anything. And it goes back to JFK. If they had wanted to investigate that, the first thing they would have done is the first person they would have called is the driver, William Greer. And they would have talked to his Secret Service detail who did nothing. They didn't. They didn't put them under scrutiny at all. And no, they weren't criticized. They weren't held accountable. You go to 9/11, no one was punished for that. Whatever happened, you want us to think this was terrorists? Well, they were flying around in airspace for an hour and a half. Well, why wasn't anyone punished? No one held accountable. No one will be held accountable here. It's just this is so laughably fake. And I for the first time in history that I know of, I've seen 2 public opinion polls where the majority of Americans believe it was fake. That has never happened. So I guess we've made some kind of progress. Although I think those results are skewed by the fact that people that hate Trump, they finally found something to fake. They wanted to throw people like me in prison when we talked about Sandy Hook or Boston bombing or the moon flights or anything like that. Oh, you can't do that. But If it involves Trump, they're willing to say it. So yeah, that's the picture there. But yeah, these are legitimate questions, and if they don't ask them, we have to do it.
Okay, so before Salim comments on this, this is a famous photo taken after the event where everybody went over to the White House, and famously, a whole bunch of the people that are covering the event kept on their tux and ties and took scooters and everything and taxis to run over to the White House for this this conference. I mean, you want to talk about dupers of the light? Everybody's got a smile. Look at Carolyn; she's got a smirk, and the president's wife is smiling. JD Vance can barely hold his chuck. And there's what's this guy's that Todd Blanche character?
Mm-hmm.
He's got a big grin on his face, and Trump is smiling. I mean, you just had a mass shooting casualty event where you're supposedly going to take out the president, but they're all arraigned in there, and they're all just joking and laughing and thinking it's the biggest. And there's my RFK Jr. God help us all. He has sold his soul to the devil. Salim, please comment on this.
Well, to me, the whole presidency is captured in this moment, whatever happened that Saturday evening at the correspondence dinner. Everything about this administration and this man is improvisation. And this improvisation just falls apart because there is no theme, there is no structure, there is nothing in there except for the moment. And I'm looking at these faces. I put on my glasses to capture the faces, and as you say, they're all smiling. What are they smiling about? Their whole drama has collapsed, or they pulled off something, over here. And it goes all the way back to Butler and at the Mar-a-Lago event, where the guy showed up in the golf course, or Trump in his 2016 campaign talking about standing in Fifth Avenue and shooting at anybody he chooses, and the people will see that as a theater. And this is the theater that we're seeing. There's nothing, I cannot draw nothing out of this, RB, except that this is a big, mighty Kish. That's what America has become. I think about Milan Kundera and his book, The Unbearable Lightness of Being. And the unbearable lightness of being is Kish. And that's what America, there's nothing serious. There is no gravitas. This country has become a country of hollow men. And there you have all hollow men with their hollow women. That's my comment.
What do you think, Matthew?
Yeah, I mean it's it's a play, you're looking at the little smirks, of this crew in front of our eyes right there, just an hour and a half after the event. There's this fun factor they're having in a delusional way, where they're kind of like getting a kick out of the fact that they're playing this game. I think that there are stage managers at the end of the day, and there's, I think, a certain rhyme shaping the chaos, a subtle rhyme, but I think that there's a sick logic to where the general directionality of this whole thing is being sort of flip-flopped and nudged towards, which you alluded to. I do agree with your assessment that the overall arching intention right now is to try to control the terms and conditions of the systemic breakdown that's a long time coming. And the battle is over who right now is going to be able to shape that very rare moment that we're currently living through, a real type of systemic end of an era change, a system change. Not dissimilar, the way I see it, from the build up to the Crusades and the unleashing of the age of the Crusades 1,000 years ago. A lot of the same forces, in some ways, you could actually find are, the same forces that brought in feudalism into France and into England and into Italy back just before the Crusades. Those same Norman forces that brought in the Northmen, that brought in feudalism, and are the same ones that unleashed this new era of crusade, based on an idea of I think, traumatizing the hell out of a few generations of victims in both the Muslim and Christian and Jewish worlds through just ritual bloodletting that would be normalized forever wars around clash of civilizations. and the advances, the successes of the earlier period of the Christian Muslim collaboration of the 8th and 9th centuries, that was kind of just forgotten. People were shaken up. And so I look at a lot of what's going on right now as sort of just a precursor to, unfortunately, what looks to be another age of chaos that some people want to break, introduce. Pete Hegseth, I don't think he was joking when he wrote his manifesto in 2020 called American Crusade. And there is, I think, a Rosicrucian occult coloring to a lot of this. And if you read some of the Rosicrucian original texts, like the Fama Rosicrucianus and the Chemical Wedding, especially the Chemical Wedding, that led into the 30 Years' War, right? These were sort of coded messaging that was multi-layered. Depending on where your level of awareness was, you might be inclined to see certain cryptographic, Kabbalistic sort of codes within the text that would impel certain people who would go on a little quest and be inducted or initiated into something that would make them more useful in upper level managerial positions within empire to oversee them. But within these texts, it's all clearly a play within a play. Like you've got a character being brought into initiation, and he's literally participating in an alchemical wedding, featuring plays within plays, and you're supposed like it's really designed to blur fact and reality, or fiction and reality. So I think a lot of those techniques, whether it's the Butler shooting, where this kid had strange contacts with BlackRock, at first when people saw Trump's, or no, not the Butler shooting. Yeah, the Butler shooting. That's right.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right. And Trump got a little chunk of ear, apparently lost, although all subsequent pictures always features him with no injury whatsoever. But this kid had like connections to BlackRock. He was in a BlackRock commercial. And a lot of people thought, hey, that's evidence that BlackRock wants to kill Trump. But actually, no, if this whole thing is stage managed as a show, and maybe the kid was sacrificed as a just like in the Chemical Wedding, there's actual humans who are sacrificed in those plays in that 1619 or 1618 document. Whatever that case may be, maybe BlackRock was always in on it with Trump in that case. The fact that you had, in that scenario, the whole thing was just so clearly fake, and I don't know. I just look at this thing too, and it's the same recipe book as far as I could see it. What do you have there is like a little.
Okay, so I wanted to bring this up. Okay,
Yeah.
so everybody knows. I'm going to share this to the screen. I'll take my picture off so people can see better. Okay, so a very weird thing. This guy named Henry Martinez, back in 2023, set up a X account.
And he had a Pepe the Frog.
Holding a wine glass. And the only thing he ever posted was Cole Allen. Okay, so I'm going to go back.
And yet he had 6.7 thousand followers. That's pretty good for somebody that never tweeted.
Yeah, and there's a picture of him, of course. And here's that picture of him. And there he is, naked on the floor with tinfoil over him. Quite content to just sit there and look at the patterns of the NASA logos on the floor. Right? And NATO logo on the floor. Anyway, so let's talk. Mario Neufeld says, okay, so this Henry Martinez, once again, I'll show it to you. He was this website that hosted this thing was called Time Travel. Okay. But what does Mario think? Okay, forget time travel. What if, and I think he's onto something here. What if the Henry Martinez account wasn't prediction, but engineering? Here's the theory that's actually keeping me up, and I think it makes sense. Cole Thomas Allen, the correspondence dinner shooter, reportedly interned at NASA JPL. He did. A Henry Martinez was in the same research environment. So Cole creates a burner, uses a real name from his orbit, posts one thing, his own name, goes silent for years. Then he walks into the Washington Hilton. Mm-hmm. Think about what he built into that account. Peppy in a tux, instant anon culture signal, guaranteed to get picked up, way back style imagery, creates the illusion of time distortion without actually predicting anything. One cryptic post triggers exactly the kind of digging that spreads a name. He wasn't predicting the future, he was programming the internet's reaction to his future. The manifesto doesn't need to go viral on its own. If the mystery does it for you, narrative engineering, pre-positioned virality, posthumous reach by design is the most chilling media manipulation story of the year. or are we now part of the machine he built? Now he's giving way too much credit to this Thomas Allen. I think he's an MK Ultra victim, and I think he's been being used, obviously. So we'll stop sharing that, and we'll go to the next one. And here's another very, very, very interesting observation by a guy named Colin Rugg. Okay, so this is the manifesto. I'm going to read the manifesto that Cole Thomas Allen put out. These guys always have to have a manifesto. So here he is. I am a citizen of the United States of America. What my representatives do reflects on me, and I am no longer willing to permit a pedophile, rapist, and traitor to coat my hands with his crimes. Administration officials, not including Mr. Patel. Okay, Don. Administration officials, not including Mr. Patel, Kash Patel, the FBI director. He's not after Kash, because apparently I think Kash is one of the people that are the MK Ultra directing of this guy. Kash is off limits because Kash is behind his movements. They are targets, prioritized from highest ranking to lowest. Secret Service, they are targets only if necessary, blah, blah, blah. And so he does these rebuttals and objections of what he's doing this for. And he calls himself at one point the friendly federal assassin. And okay, now he writes a PS. When did he write this PS? When he was in that room assembling the gun? Or, I mean, he had to leave his hotel room to go down to the ballroom to do all this stuff, but he has time at some point to write a PS. And okay, now that all the sappy stuff is done, what the hell is the Secret Service doing? Gonna rant a bit here and drop the formal tone. What? Like, I expected security cameras at every bend, bugged hotel rooms, armed agents every 10 feet, metal detectors out the wazoo. What I got, who knows, maybe they're pranking me, is nothing. No damn security. Not in transport. Not in the hotel. Not in the event. Like, the one thing that I immediately noticed walking into the hotel is a sense of arrogance. I walk in with multiple weapons and not a single person there considers the possibility that I could be a threat. The security at the event is all outside, focused on protests and current arrivals, because apparently no one thought about what happens if someone checks in the day before. Okay, so what is he doing there? He's outlining all the security failures. What he's setting up there as, and this is a 17-second video, of course. I want to show this too real quick, but I want to show you, because he was like the previous assassin who was in a BlackRock commercial. This guy was at an event that was, by the way, semi-hosted by Uma.
Usha Vance, yeah.
Usha Vance was also there, and they talked about the future of engineering wheelchairs and all that. But his 39 seconds of Cole Allen as a Caltech student a few years ago.
College student Cole Allen developed a prototype for a wheelchair emergency brake.
The wheelchair brakes tend to lock the wheels, but don't actually lock the chair to the ground. The idea with this is to prevent it from moving at all.
Recent Aging into the Future conference held by St. Barnabas Senior Services and the Eisner Foundation offered a test run on products that have the potential to enrich the lives of
There's
seniors.
Usha Vance right there.
14 different startups got to present to over 350 people in the hopes of getting their projects into some.
I want to go back to that. I need people to understand this, because there's always connections, right? That is Usha Vance. That is JD Vance's wife, who was at that conference.
Seniors. 14 different tech startups got to present to over 350 people in the hopes of getting their projects into some sort of senior health facilities.
So he was there. So like the BlackRock, he's known to them. So here he is outlining when did he write this PS on his manifesto? At what point? Very, very strange. And he's so what there's, and of course he also, by the way, how he got from California to Washington, he took a train. And now people are talking, of course, that they should set up a TSA type system for trains. So what all this does is going to drive a push for more surveillance, more security, everything. I mean, it writes itself, don't you think, Don?
Yeah, except when you have the most controversial president of all time and he's speaking, then you don't have any security. Security everywhere else for the commoners, but yeah, it's The whole thing. And by the way, that one tweet was from a Jennifer Lawrence. Is that the actress Jennifer Lawrence?
No, I
Was
don't
she
think.
actually? I mean, that would be amazing if she was tweeting about that. But you notice these are the kind of things I noticed. The Henry Martinez guy. Again, I know how hard it was for me to get the number of followers I had before X canceled my account. I can't get it back. They hacked into it, but and nobody. How do you get six? I mean, that's not that many, but it's a lot of followers for somebody who doesn't tweet and isn't a celebrity. How do you have 6,700 followers and 0 tweets? One tweet rather with colon. So those are the kind of things I
Apparently, all that Henry Martinez account you're talking about. Apparently,
Yeah.
all the followers joined after the assassination. That's when they started following the account.
Oh,
When they
okay,
first,
okay.
when it was first broke, there was hardly anybody following that account either. It was at
Okay, that
0.
makes well, that makes
Basically at
sense. Then.
0 until it was
Well, I don't know
found.
where he's getting followers.
But I'd
Is
like
he
to
gonna
know who.
tweet now?
But I'd like to know who found it and first put it out, because we were obviously directed to see that. Salim, are we talking? Salim, I want to go to you. Predictive programming. What's going on? They set these things up years in advance, and then play us along like marionettes.
I have no way to go into all this crystal ball about predicting the future, but I see on reflection that this guy, and however it was staged, succeeded, because what is missing in, I believe, in not only in this discussion, we have been talking about this for an hour when the world is falling apart, but coming back to the events of that week, this was a great deflection away from Donald Trump's and his people's idea of getting in boots on the ground to take away the uranium from the Isfahan nuclear site, and that story has been completely lost. And what the other story has been that an F-15E was shot down with 2 pilots on the F-15E. The guy on the back seat was a colonel, and then nobody has produced him. That the whole operation was actually to rescue a pilot, and the pilot was rescued. But has anyone seen him? We have seen a so-called assassin who never did any assassination. He ran with a gun, with all the whole lot of law enforcement agency people in uniform and guns pulled out, couldn't shoot down this man running. And the whole country has been talking about it, but what happened in Isfahan, nobody has seen it. Nobody knows about it. There has been no clear, transparent accountability about it. I don't know whether the Senate or the House have held hearing about this, have put Hexet on the floor, and asked him, where is that man who you supposed to have read?
Actually, I'm going to be coming to that. I've got a clip of Pete Hegseth being grilled coming up real soon, Salim. I want to quickly go to Matt.
Has anybody seen that pilot?
We're going to get back. We're going to get back to that, Salim. We're getting to the serious part right away. But first, I want Matt's assessment of about the Henry Martinez thing, real quick.
I think it's useful. There was certainly intentional signal put out in 2023 as a plant, because that's the way the game is wired. And if you look at QAnon, it is a military intelligence operation, but more than that, you have to look at people like, number one, there's two ways to look at this. Number one, it's the outgrowth of a former Cicada 3310 operation that was first made public on the 4chan networks, that were the same networks that first introduced QAnon in 2017. But in 2012, the 4chan platform, which Jeffrey Epstein was also on the ground floor funding and building up in 2012, was the channel that first introduced the Cicada 3310 cryptic messaging. You read these messages, these sort of
I followed that story on the Y files, so people should type in the Y files and Cicada, and you'll find the whole story. But it's very fascinating.
Yes. So, this was done in several waves over 3 years as, again, a plant to introduce, to get young, I guess the focus was young pattern recognition talented minds to go into challenges, and there were little Easter eggs rewards. It was basically worked out like an alternate reality game, kind of like.
And so maybe Cole Allen was involved with that sort of thing.
Yeah, I think he possibly got involved.
And they picked him out. Oh, he's got this kind of brain.
Then they play a role. That was the way you'd get recruited in talent search, to play a role in a thing, as your partially a reward or partially, now you're on a mission, kind of like, again, the way the old Templar Grail Knights were recruited by reading these Grail mystery plays and then being pulled into a challenge, a game within a game. And, as soon as you unravel one problem, a new clue for a new problem would be presented to you that would set you on another journey. And they wouldn't realize that they were being curated. Their experiences were being controlled by game masters, dungeon masters that were deconstructing them psychologically and building them up for those who would survive their challenges to play a role in something very bad. And so the same thing with the Cicada 3301 or 10. When the shifting of the gears happened in 2017 and it became QAnon, it was the same MO, the same techniques, and it involves now magic. It's a magic trick. It's the same thing. You plant something in somebody's experience, and then you that they've got a plan to go to an astrologer or a hand reader next week, and they're all coordinated. So somebody is deployed to plant something in their world, a letter they find or whatever. And the crystal, they're working with the person who is now going to be doing the crystal ball gazing or the hand reading or whatever. And the dupe, the target, walks in and thinks that this person knows everything about them because they, got some information, some intel, but it was planted there. So the same thing is happening on a slightly longer scale right now, but that's the way it works. And then they can use, the Q drops will be able to then make references to things that was said in 2017, 2018 in a Q drop saying, oh, look, that's what happened in 2024. And it's like, well, yeah, because it's a game that's very curated. It's a highly curated game. And then they play with people's idea of spatial, time traveling Baron Trump or whatever. Like, they start playing with people's heads, not realizing that you're living in a fucking magic trick. Sorry for the language, but that's what it is. So
and it works as a huge distraction. It takes people's minds off the real bullshit, the real horrible shit going on right now. Yeah. And we're going to get into Sleem's wheelhouse now.
Yes.
This is a 3-minute clip of Douglas McGregor just dropping truth bomb after truth bomb.
And I think that this Israeli war for the Greater Israel Project is the catalyst for the collapse of American power around the world, because we have unconditionally supported it. We're on a road to an economic crisis, financial catastrophe, something that we really haven't experienced since the 1930s. That's how bad it's going to be. Until it gets that bad, people are not going to stand up. They're not going to go into the streets. They're not going to make their views felt and understood in Washington. And right now, both the Senate, the House, and the White House, all of these three institutions are firmly in the grip of the lobby. So when this collapse comes, and I think it's coming sometime this year, it's going to be god-awful hell to pay for the Israelis, and it's going to be the end of this administration, and probably the end for most of the people on the Hill. I think that's how serious it's going to get. It's hard for people to imagine, because what we're really seeing happen right now is a movement from abundance, which we've had now for decades, an abundance of oil, an abundance of cash, an abundance of everything, to scarcity. We're suddenly not going to enjoy the living standard that we've enjoyed for so long. We're going to look a lot like Great Britain after World War II, hopelessly debt-ridden and busy extracting our forces from everywhere in the world to try and cut expenses and get back on our feet. And we all know, historically, Great Britain never got back on its feet. It was finished after World War II. I hope it's not going to be that bad, but the way I see it right now, if things happen as I anticipate, we're going to have a larger war. Let's assume you just stick with the blockade initially. How long before others show up to force your blockade to end? Are we going to try and extend this blockade to becoming a global event? That's already been uttered by the Secretary of War. He said we're going to have a global blockade. You've got General Kane, who's talked about boarding ships and blockading ships that are coming out of the Persian Gulf and headed somewhere inside the Strait of Malacca. I mean, talk about stupidity on stilts. Taking something that should already be over, it should have ended, and now turning it into a global phenomenon that's going to lead to a global war of some kind. And I just don't see anything good happening for us. And I don't see the American people profiting in any way. And I don't blame the American people for their complacency. Americans are human beings. If they're not hurt immediately, if they don't feel immediate pain, their tendency is, well, let's see how this turns out. This is not going to turn out well. It's going to turn out very badly.
Yeah, I think you're right. I think so many people are going about their lives, they're not intentionally burying their heads in the sand, but until they notice it on the grocery store shelves or they see it at the gas tank in a much larger capacity, the inflation going up and housing prices coming down and mortgage rates going back up and all of these things that are tied to this, lack of food on the table, et cetera, that's when there's going to be an awakening. And I hope that people wake up ahead of that. But I don't anticipate. Just a few minutes ago, Natalie just shared this with me. This is disgusting, but this is Benjamin Netanyahu just posting this on social media about Lebanon just a few minutes ago. Says Lebanon continuing and just sharing bombs just hitting infrastructure all throughout Lebanon.
I think that...
Okay, let's go to Salim first. That's what's really going on in the world, and I think that's what the distractions are for, right?
Yeah, and it's not been going on this past month or the 60 days. This has been going on now several years. I mean, the genocide in Gaza, 2023, October 2023, most people in North America assume that history begins in October 2023. The bad guys going after the Israelis, totally ignorant about the previous 70 plus years of what has been happening in Palestine from 1948, indeed going all the way back to 1917-18. So my view in the long term, I mean, Douglas McGregor is excellent and very good, and he's a military man, and he's a historian, and he understands, and he connects all the various dots that need to be connected to have that wide-angle view or a 30,000 feet view from the top of what we are dealing with and where we are headed, But coming back to the North American, he's absolutely right. The last period, this period post 1945, simply factually, objectively, has been a period of the greatest abundance. I mean, I recall as McGregor was speaking, it ticked in my head. John Kenneth Galbraith's great book from the 1960s, which became a massive bestseller, The Affluent Society. America was the affluent society, and the whole world turned and looked at America, and what America represented, which the world wanted to catch up with it, however distant people were from America, they looked up to America, And that gave the Americans a sense about themselves, their society, their values, their sense of who they are, completely disproportionately contrary to anything people elsewhere had gone through in those 80 years, from famine, diseases, starvation, lack of, resources, or the extortion of resources that has been going on. And where we have arrived in this 80 years, this is the culminating point, and therefore it is baked into this culminating point is the collapse also. Where we have arrived is what was said only a few hours ago by President Trump. He said, in relationship to the oil tankers that the American forces have boarded on and captured, he says, this is thrilling, or words to that effect. We have become pirates. And he was celebrating that. We have become pirates. The word now escapes from me. What I read this morning is astounding. No, here I have it. It's very predictable. We are like pirates. So this affluent society has turned into piracy, and the president is celebrating that. You know,
Let me quickly play that clip, Celine, to back you up, okay? Let me quickly play that clip.
And there was no response. Turn your ship around. Evacuate your engine room immediately. And you see all these guys running out of there. Now, they're 5 miles away. In one shot into the engine room, blew up the engine room. The ship stopped.
He's laughing about it.
Tugboats, and then we landed on top of it. On top of everything else, we then land on top of it, and we took over the ship. We took over the cargo, took over the oil. It's a very profitable business. Who would have thought we were doing that? We're like pirates.
And the audience is laughing.
We're sort of like pirates. But we're not playing games, 'cause, you know,
We're being pirates.
for 47 years, Iran has been pushing everybody around.
Okay. Yeah. Iran's been pushing everybody around. Go ahead, Celine. Finish up your thought there.
well, so we are pirates, and at the same time, this morning, as I was reading all of this thing happen, I read the report in the Forbes business magazine this morning. I don't know if anybody else. I'm sure Matthew must have come across it. Forbes reporting that Trump organization, Trump, is now 100% richer than what he was in 2017 when he moved into the White House. In 2017, he was his declared wealth was $3.5 billion, and today it is $6.5 billion. He has been raking in money, not only him, his cabinet secretaries, people around him, you know. So this is a country now that doesn't even try to obscure and hide the extortion, the extraction of wealth that colonialism, imperialism represented. And let me make one more point and I will quite go silent. It was Marco Rubio carrying Trump's message to the Munich Security Conference early this year in February 2026, where he spoke about openly that American policy is going to be one of colonial imperialism. In other words, extraction and extortion. Okay? So this is what America now represents in my 4.0 representation, you know? And all those hanger-arounds around America, the G7 countries, the Europeans, and so on and so forth, you know, about America. What is America? And this is where the collapse is coming, because the global South has had it. The Chinese, the Japanese, the South Koreans, the Russians, the Indians, you just name it, the whole African continent. They've had it and they've been wanting a way out, and now they've found a way out. And this last year, the history when it will be written will be how the way out was found, how they exited out of this extortive, extractive, piratical economic structure that the global North created, led by America in the post-1945 period.
Hey, Matt, I want your opinion on that too. This in 1 year, Donald Trump has gone from a net worth of $2.5 billion and facing significant legal burdens to becoming president-elect and returning to Forbes' tally of America's richest people, thanks to his majority stake in the Truth Social's parent company, which grew his net worth to $6.1 billion. And with all the insider trading factored in, Matthew, my God, these never in history has any American administration been so brazenly corrupt and getting away with it. And I hear people saying, well, why don't the Democrats do anything? Because they're getting a cut. What do you think, Matt?
Yeah. Well, yeah, it's hard to find people with the moral high ground right now to call this thing out. You know, that's what's a bit discouraging looking at the American political configuration, is that looking back in days in the 1970s and the 80s, even in the 90s, there was still a little bit of you could find examples of people who had a clearer conscience and who could call out bullshit. They could call out the church. The church committee could be formed to really force into the light of day certain dark little skeletons that were supposed to remain in the closet. I don't see very much of any of that right now. Prove me wrong, people, if there's anybody listening who could prove to me that there are some noble souls out there, but I don't see them. And everyone's compromised in varying degrees. So you're right. And the billionaire class that is now increasingly, like, look at venture capital, which is now...
we haven't even talked about the Epstein files and how that has been thrown into the bag.
It doesn't stop, right? Private equity is increasingly becoming ever more engrossed as more and more nations of the world don't want to buy US dollars. The US dollar itself, if they're trying to keep the US dollar alive, they're not doing a good job. It's tanking. It's lost like 10% of its value over last year. Nations of the world don't see this as a reliable thing to invest in, but yet somebody is. It's not tanked yet, even though China is unloading for obvious reasons. They see it as monopoly money. I mean, Salim is right. McGregor is right. We're on the verge of something really bad, probably worse than 1929, probably some combination of 1923 Weimar plus 29 and a little bit worse. But venture capital, private equity companies, private firms are buying up the US treasuries. Canada and the UK are buying it up to compensate, to keep it afloat. And we're being told, there's this battle between the Canadians and the British and the Americans. No, I don't see that. I see it that's again for show. But on everything that matters, it's the continuity of the same system on every regard. So, and we could talk about that if you want, but...
Well, I would like to talk about that because one of the guys I usually watch, he's on the right. His name is Lionel from Lionel Nation. And he was talking about the Butler shooting. And he said, well, it has to be real because if it was that stage, the Democrats would seize on it to destroy Trump because the Democrats, you remember all that lawfare against Trump and the Russia hoax and all that stuff. Well, the Democrats they wanted blood from, but I'm saying that all that was also staged and set up to give Trump sympathy amongst the right. And because the Democrats didn't call out Butler, because the Democrats will not call out what just happened at the Washington Hilton, because they have their own false flag psyop stuff that they built on when they were in power, all those school shootings, Sandy Hook, Orlando, San Bernardino, all that bullshit that it was provably, as far as I'm concerned, hoaxes. And the Republicans because they're both in it on it's the strategy of tension. They both have their own little game going on. It's like that Illuminati card game where you can just throw cards at somebody. Here's an assassination attempt, and here's a equity takeover. Here's a bank closure. It's one big game, and they're in on it. They're making the profit from it. But us here on the bottom, we people that are suffering from this system, we just keep getting shat on and shat on. Am I on the right course there, Matt?
That's the trend, eh? That's the trend. Yeah, it's gross on so many levels, and it is piracy. To hear those words being spoken and the impunity right now of just going in and just capturing, the oil revenues of nations like Venezuela that are now supposed to be under U.S. jurisdiction. Chevron's getting all sorts of rewards by having their own pipeline moving in, via Turkey through into Europe to supplement or to get around the loss of energy that the Europeans once were expecting from Nord Stream 2 and 1. And the gambit right now on the coast of Gaza, there's massive oil fields that it seems certain forces are drooling over around their Gaza board and building up and acquiring something that is the rightful ownership of the Palestinians. But they're not allowed to develop that. It's got to be done under only the conditions where the Gaza is wiped out and this new thing is created in the same area that the Kingdom of Jerusalem used to be, and I can't get that out of my head.
Yeah.
It's absolutely gross and very unfortunate that people are still falling for a lot of the moment to moment little micro dramas that are distracting us.
Okay, so Don mentioned this before, and I want Don to comment on this and then Salim, because this is Pete Hegseth. Now, I think Mr. Max Blumenthal, I love him, and he seems to have more hope than I do, but Pete Hegseth was just accused U.S. troops of spreading falsehoods against him. Those service members accused Hegseth of moving them to a completely undefended location in Kuwait, where 6 U.S. soldiers were killed in a retaliatory Iran strike. He's done. And I'm sorry, Max, but he's not done, because the boss, Mr. Trump,
knew
behind
maximize
the
effectiveness of the theater.
Let's talk about what defenses they had. Prior to the attack, officers on the ground knew our troops were vulnerable. In fact, they requested additional force protection. Did they receive it?
Wherever humanly possible, force protection and counter UAS is always
time.
made available.
They did not. In fact, when asked to describe the base's defense, one survivor who's come forward from the unit said, quote, I mean, I would put it in the none category. From a drone defense capability, none. So let's be clear, no counter drone capabilities, no counter rocket systems, no counter mortar or counter artillery, not even the basic overhead protection that you and I had.
One thing I want to mention is how passionate these U.S. Congress members are when it comes to the safety of U.S. troops and and what happens to them and their deaths and whatever. But they don't seem to care too much the fact that we bombed a school in Minab and killed 168 kids. But anyway, we'll keep going on.
20 years ago in Iraq, and now 6 of our soldiers are dead. The next day, you downplayed the attack. You said it was a squirter that squeaked through fortified defenses. But since then, thankfully, brave survivors have come forward to set the record straight. One of our surviving soldiers told CBS, quote, painting a picture that one squeaked through is a falsehood. Another said the unit was, quote, unprepared to provide any defense for itself. It was not a fortified position. Another survivor said the building's protection was about as weak as one gets. Secretary Hegseth, that is obviously in direct contradiction to what you said from the Pentagon podium the next day. So are you saying that these soldiers, our soldiers who survived this horrific attack, are lying?
What I'm saying is, before the commencement of the conflict, we put in maximum defensive posture we could.
That's a direct
We moved
contradiction to
70
what they said.
in this directing. Can I speak, or are you just going to monologue falsehoods all over the place?
It's not a falsehood.
We moved.
Okay, so Dawn, I'm now going to stop sharing this. You will keep that in mind when we see this. This is Mr. Pete Hegseth going through the crowd. And some of this is pretty amazing.
Secretary Hegseth, why are you blocking Ukraine aid? Why are you stopping $400 million to Ukraine aid?
Why did you order the bombing of the school children? Why did you order the bombing yourself?
How many American service members have to die for Israel?
So how many American service members must die for Israel, Don? It's breaking through into the zeitgeist. It doesn't matter what's happening out there. People are waking up and they're starting to say the obvious, asking the obvious questions.
I hope so, but the question before that wasn't very awake when she said, why are you stopping $400 million for Ukraine? It's like, if he's doing that, Peg says he's doing something good. I wasn't aware he did that, but yeah, he's next to Trump. He seems like the most mentally unstable member of that administration. He seriously is off, sometimes we didn't know when he was on Fox News, had no idea the guy was like that. He did a pretty decent job. He didn't seem to be off his rocker, but this whole thing is just so, and it is falling, I think, to some degree, but we're still outnumbered. We're still outnumbered. Every time I get a little hope, and I do have hope, I had, in my own chat, people that, very seldom come on, we're not buying what we were selling yesterday. They were thinking that this was a real event. And you've still got people that have bought into the idea that now America first is to stop Iran from getting a nuclear weapon. That's become the new thing. That's what we voted for him for. And, that's the problem, is that you had the American people have such a capacity for not being able to critically think. And, let's face it, these are not good conspirators. And I tell people all the time, just because you have power, it doesn't mean I don't believe they're reptilians or, they're incredibly brilliant Kabbalistic masters or something. I don't think they're superior at all. They have power and they're really terrible at what they do. They're conspiracies, you can see through them easily. They fall apart like this latest one, and maybe they want it to be that way, and they're just playing games with us. But if you just want any kind of critical thought, why don't you want better than this? Why do you accept these things? We know when they have the next election, Lindsey Graham and people like that will be reelected again. It's inevitable. And they don't demand any better. And, we in Virginia now, we have this awful Abigail Spanberger who's just horrific. She said, but I think people voted her in. I walk around my neighborhood and I see the signs, the political signs for people. So that's what we have to face, the fact that whoever the people are that are misruling us, or the powers that should not be, as RB refers to them as, we're enabling them because the majority of the people are falling for it and they just refuse. I see them all the time. They'll argue and, I suppose, how much was this guy paid to come from California? Do you think if you've heard of MK Ultra? I mean, have you heard of crisis actors, which did exist? They remember after Sandy Hook broke and everything, there was a crisisactors.org. There was a website. And as I point out in my book, Bullyocracy, these schools, they have school live shooter drills. And it's one of the things Alex Jones pointed out a long time ago, and he's doing good work. They also have them in neighborhoods, but I've run mainstream articles as sourcing them for my books. People complaining about why are we having these live shooter drills? They use crisis actors. They use fake blood. They involve law enforcement. They involve EMT people. And they're completely fake. And they don't tell the students. You talk about, abuse. Sometimes they don't tell the teachers. And this is reality. So when people say that other shootings are fake, well, we know they're faking them all the time, admittedly, with these live shooter drills. Is it really that much of a stretch to say, especially when you see these? So it's the same kind of thing. They're not, they're not admitting that they're having live shooter drills in terms of assassinations, but we see the same things there that doesn't make sense. Nobody does their job. We live in a security state here where you can't go anywhere with traffic light cameras and all that stuff. You're captured everywhere. You go through 10 layers of security to get anywhere on the internet now. And yet in something like that, nobody's there. You can walk right in with a cache of weapons. So it's these questions that should be asked, and it shouldn't. We can only do what we can do because we're not, we don't have a CBS News or New York Times or some kind of big, mainstream media outlet that has subpoena power and real resources behind us. We just have to wing it. We're asking questions, but we don't have any professional journalists that will ask those questions. They should be doing it. They never do. They won't do it for this because they don't do it for anything else.
Yeah, and like I want to play this for Matt, and I want him to talk about it because there seems to be a turning going on here. So take a close look at this. NBC News published a major investigation this afternoon. 6 reporters, 6 named sources inside the U.S. government. The story breaks open something the Trump administration has been hiding for 2 months. The damage Iran did to American military bases in the opening phases of the war is far worse than the Pentagon has admitted. Repairs will cost billions of dollars. Here's what NBC found. I'm going to stop sharing that and then play this real quick 3-minute video. Wow. I mean, do you remember in previous wars, they would never try to hide this stuff? Even in Vietnam, they always published a list of the damages done because people are going to find out anyway, but they've been trying to hide this for 2 months. Let's listen.
Camp Buehring, Kuwait. American soldiers enjoying a karaoke night at one of the biggest U.S. military hubs in the Gulf. That was then. This is now. A once bustling American microcity in the desert, nearly empty and heavily damaged after a weeks-long barrage of Iranian missiles and drones. One of many U.S. military facilities in the oil-rich Arabian Peninsula, targeted by Iran even as the U.S. and Israel pummeled the Islamic Republic's large arsenal. So what impact have Iran's strikes had on America's footprint in the Middle East? A CNN investigation found evidence of unprecedented destruction. We can reveal that strikes damaged at least 16 U.S. installations across 8 countries. According to our analysis and sourcing, that's the majority of American military positions in the region, and some of them are virtually unusable now. A U.S. source familiar with the situation told us that they'd never seen anything like this at American bases, that these were rapid, targeted strikes using advanced technology. Iran's main targets? Multi-million-dollar aircraft, like this Boeing E-3 Sentry, which gave the U.S. a huge amount of visibility over the Gulf. It's out of production, and in today's money, it's worth nearly $500 million. Critical communications equipment. Look at these giant golf balls. They're known as radomes, and they protect satellite dishes vital for data transmission. In this base alone, Iran destroyed all but one of the radomes less than a month into the war. And crucially, radar systems. Highly sophisticated, expensive, difficult to replace, and critical to air defense. A second U.S. source, this one a congressional aide familiar with damage assessments, described these as the most cost-effective of the targets. Our radar systems, they said, are our most expensive and our most limited resource in the region. For U.S. allies in the region, there's a dilemma. In some ways, Iran's show of force makes the U.S.'s presence in the region even more necessary to Gulf security. But there's a new reality here, which is that U.S. military installations, previously seen as formidable fortresses, have turned into sitting targets.
Sitting targets, Matthew. Everything's changed. Iran has become the fourth world power. All of a sudden, just like that.
Yeah, it's interesting, eh? Well, the U.S. definitely bit off a lot. Whether they, I mean, so the question I always have in my mind, I hosted a show every week on a very pro-MAGA network, and my co-host was introducing from the very beginning a certain theory that I to a limited degree am willing to entertain, though not to the degree that he is. That the blueprint laid out in the foreign security doctrine policy document, that the 30-page or 33-page document of November of 2025, which outlines, in words at least, an acceptance of multipolarity, although it means something very different for a Rubio than it does for a Xi Jinping, obviously. Their idea is much more Orwellian, but a more focus on bringing America's resources to North America as a jurisdiction that extends far beyond the current USA, but into Greenland and down to, Ibero-America, as outlined in the Technocracy Incorporated sort of guidelines. So that would require a different kind of empire that would be fully embraced in that new type of, post-globalization era, around which a new type of warfare against America's perceived enemies could be waged in a very different way than what we've been accustomed to in the last few centuries of warfare, conventional style. Cyber, bacteriological, space-based weaponry would be, as the PNAC doctrine outlined, the new forms of more relevant, future-oriented warfare, asymmetrical warfare of that sort. So it's possible that maybe a lot of what is happening has been used to create an excuse or a condition around which the U.S. could eliminate some of its bad habits and refocus itself, get rid of a bunch of its systems that have been enmeshed in the Middle East for, since Desert Storm, and refocus on North America, but still have the intention of a longer game fight to destroy China and Russia and their allies over a longer cycle. It's possible. I don't know that that's untrue. I don't believe it 100%. I'm just entertaining hypotheses here. Otherwise, it looks like a complete, shit show, incompetent maneuver that is blown up in the face of MAGA completely on every level. So it's either what I first said or some flavor of incompetence. One of those. I don't know if there's a third option or a fourth option. That's what I'm thinking about, right?
And I wanted to ask Saliba about that, because there's this theory of thought that this was inevitable, and they're just managing the decline, and they're trying to make as much money out of it as the empire destroys itself. But there is an inevitability to it. The global south is rising. China and Russia are now cooperating, and they're allies with Iran. I don't think there's any going back. I don't think the Anglo-American Empire can ever reestablish itself in the Middle East anymore. I think everything is changing right before our eyes. Do you agree with that? And I want you to roll what's going to happen to Israel in it. Was Israel, in a way, led along by their own hubris to take a step too far? And is everything going to collapse in on them too?
Harvey, this is a very important and valuable discussion that we need to have, devoted to these questions, and not messed up with the first hour, which is absolutely important. I mean, that you needed to do. But the question.
Thank you, Salim. I want to thank you so much, Salim, for going along with that and not being too dismissive.
Seriously, there has to be a standard, because if we have the courage, if we have the honesty, if we have the integrity and the decency, we have to deal with the muck that has jammed up the entire system of Occidental thinking. People talk about the Orient despotism, and so on and so forth. Well, if there is an Orient, there is an Occident. And we have to talk about that in a very serious way. Let me just point out a couple of things very quickly, because all I can do is just pinpoint, without getting into the granular. It is in the 19th century, 19th century, but particularly in the 19th century, in the second half, especially with the Europeans, that the study of anthropology became a sort of a pseudoscience, to go out and study the culture of the lesser people, that is the Orient. Who are the Chinese, who are the Hindus, and their cultural habits and their way of thinking, who are the Arabs, the Muslim, and so on and so forth. Africa, measuring the head skull size, looking for the genitalia and so on and so forth, how big they are, and therefore less intelligent, less IQ. I had a colleague in the university at Western, I don't want to name names, his fame rested upon the whole idea of the genitalia, and why.
Are you serious, Salim?
Pardon me?
Are you serious? There was an anthropologist.
I'm absolutely serious, and I'm not going to name names, but he was a friend of mine, and he has gone, and may he rest in peace, But he was part of that, way of thinking, and that way of thinking exists, which is what went wrong over here, but has gone wrong not only in this instance, the attack on Iran, but in the generality. We have to do, and I would propose to say, the anthropology of the white man, of the Anglo-Saxon. And one critical thing that stands out in a very quick way that I want to summarize it, that the white man doesn't know how to say, I am sorry.
Okay.
And everything, in a sense, hangs upon that. When you go to Japan, you learn how to say, each side keep bowing at each other, and people say, what are they doing? It's acknowledging each other. That's a cultural trait of the East, of the Orient. But the white man doesn't know how to say sorry and solve the problem. Where is the truth and reconciliation that the South African engaged with Desmond Tutu started, right? So that's one point. The other point about prediction, the global arrangement, and so on and so forth. People have forgotten that on January 1st, 1989, Ayatollah Khomeini, the founder of the Islamic Republic, wrote a personal letter to Gorbachev, which was hand-delivered to Gorbachev in Moscow when Gorbachev was still the president. This is 2 years before Soviet Union actually collapsed in the Christmas of 1991. So that was on January 1, 1989. It's a dense letter with a long footnotes to that letter, and it should be read, but people have forgotten it, because what does the Oriental man knows? It was thick with references. It was a dialogue that that the Ayatollah was opening with Russia, or at that time still the Soviet Union, and the president, he saw, in other words, that's the year he died. He died in June of 1989. You talk about prediction, he saw that the Cold War was over. He saw that the Soviet Union was collapsed, and he was reaching out to Gorbachev and the Russian leaders to open up a relationship with Iran that had been so destructive in the 19th century coming into the 20th century. You know, Iran is the underbelly of Russia, which is what now Putin recognizes. He meets Arakchi a week ago, you know. The president of Russia meeting the foreign minister.
That's very important for people to know that.
Precisely. So this letter needs to be read and discussed what he was talking about. What he was talking about in 1989 was subsequently talked about by John Paul II, was talked about by Benedict XVI. That is the hollowing out of the West's most precious inheritance, that is Christianity. And Ayatollah Khomeini was reaching out to talk about it and Islam and the whole bundle of that relationship, you know. So if one wants to figure out what is happening now or has happened in the intervening years, one has to go back for both Moscow and Tehran. One has to go back to that letter, because the entire leadership crew that is presently running Iran were basically in their early 20s or mid 20s during and after the revolution of 79, who fought in the Iran-Iraq war, a decade-long war that was the most difficult French-like war that was, and the longest war that was fought between two powers after World War I. Just as World War I was a grueling warfare, this was a grueling warfare with the West fully armed with chemical weapons. Saddam Hussein in Iraq. Okay, so these leaders, Arakchi, Pezeshkian, Ghalibaf, the man who was killed, Ali Larijani, all of them, including Ayatollah Khamenei, the leader who was killed, were all people who fought in that 8-year war. And what was the phrase of Stephen Ambrose? Brothers in arms. Okay, so these are brothers in arms. They know what they're fighting for. They've been tested in battle, okay, and in ideas, and in terms of their own conviction and of their own commitment. So yes, there was an anticipation. Yes, they knew that history is going to turn, and they are going to bring it about. That is the significance of the Iranian Revolution, you know, and that once the revolution matures and is grounded and has this confrontation with the West that they all expected will happen, because they all knew and understood the depth to which the Zionists had penetrated America and what that meant.
I want to quickly read this, Salim. So the letter included a prediction about the end of Marxism and the collapse of communism. Khomeini stated, Mr. Gorbachev, it is clear to everybody that from now on, communism will only have to be found in the museums of world political history. For Marxism cannot meet any of the real needs of mankind. Marxism is a materialistic ideology, cannot bring humanity out of the crisis caused by a lack of belief in spirituality. The prime affliction of the human society in the East and the West alike. Khomeini warned Gorbachev against falling into the arms of Western capitalism. Khomeini further added in the letter, the main problem confronting your country is not of private ownership, freedom, and economy. Your problem is the absence of the faith in God. That is incredible.
That's 1989, right?
Yeah.
Almost 40 years ago. So this is all have to be understood. So now you can map where America has gone in the last 40 years, along with the G7 countries, including Canada, the West that I saw drifting away, because I came here when I was barely 20 years old. So in my 50 years, I have seen, I've tracked, I've understood where it has come. It breaks my heart, because this is not the West that I came to. It's not the West that has been glorified in the Orient that we grew up with. Okay. So this was understood. The Iranians are not the enemies of the West. Khomeini was not the enemy of the West. If the West knew how, if Jimmy Carter knew, and he should have been the first man to have understood, a Baptist minister, to understand that the 1719 revolution was basically the turning of the wheel and straightening out Iran's own history with what had happened in 1953, in which America was a critical player and had said, we are sorry. We have to come together. We are a civilizational state like Iran is a civilizational state. Iran has no enmity with the Americans, no Iranian. Ali Larijani and all of them have come to the West, including Mossadegh. He was a student of Sorbonne University, and all of them. I still have in my library the book that was written by Ali Khamenei on the greatest Urdu Persian poet from South Asia, Muhammad Iqbal, who is venerated in Iran. This dialogue has been going on, which the West has totally ignored, and it has ignored for the reason of their own, self glorification that has taken place over the 500 years. So, in a sense, if you really want to understand, it is the great irony. Set aside people like Walt Whitman or Ralph Waldo Emerson and all of these people, Henry Thoreau of America. The political class, the ruling class, are actually the most primitive men in civilizational terms. There is more civilization and culture among the people of Iran, since we're talking about Iran, or among the people of Vietnam that was, deracinated, attacked, and almost destroyed. And they never said sorry. That's the problem. That is not taught in the school, where I was a professor for 40 years in one of the premier university in Canada. That is lacking among the faculty. And that is not addressed to and by the students, because it is self-glorification. That's the problem we are dealing with.
What do you think, Matt? That is a problem, but I think there are moments in history that are touchstones. You talked about your Edgar Allan Poe in your Edgar Allan Poe documentary, and I think this has something to do with it. I think Edgar Allan Poe was onto something. He was being held back from trying to. Oh, where'd you go, Matt? Matt disappeared. Well, we'll flip to Don. What do you think about what Salim was saying?
Certainly, I always agree with Salim. I mean, he has a worldview that I don't have. He's much more cosmopolitan than I am. I'm an America first mindset. I know America pretty much. My view of the world beyond that is not nearly as wide ranging as his is. But I think this all goes down to not America. We talked about Christianity and everything. America is not. America as a people may be Christian, but our leaders certainly are not. I don't know what they are, whether it's satanic or whatever, but this is the first time I know that we've been fighting a war, obviously on behalf of another country, really, that we really have no, I don't think, any desire to be involved in other than we're doing it for them. But where we have this ungrateful person, the ungrateful country. So you saw the IDF soldier attacking the statue of Christ, and we've had all these reports of Christians that have been killed by IDF soldiers, Christian sites attacked, and we don't do anything. It doesn't matter. Our leadership will not do anything. Again, we're supposed to be a bastion of Christianity. It doesn't matter. We don't, because we are obviously, fighting on behalf of them. We'll call out Muslims that supposedly do something, but I've never seen a Muslim attack a statue of Christ or attach Christian holy sites like the Israelis have. So I think that's what we need to look at is why are we doing this, and why are we doing it at the behest of people? They already told us that they're not going to put boots on the ground. If you do that, not us. I mean, this is the worst case of, spousal abuse or whatever you would call it, that we would possibly do. And the people are looking through it, even though we're still probably outnumbered. But there are more and more people. That's the one bright spot of this the way as we go swirling down the drain, is that Zionism is finally being exposed for what it is intellectually indefensible. And a lot more Americans are seeing that more than ever. And so you can't sell it. And I'm convinced that's why we are not in World War III. I don't think they can sell it. They know that they have a soft use that couldn't serve anyhow. And I think they might have widespread opposition to it, I think, if they tried to do it, because they know there's nothing to be fighting for.
I wanted to ask Matt about that because I think in your series about Edgar Allan Poe, you talked about this idea, this Zionist force, whatever we call it Zionism now, but it was actually in service to the powers that ought not be a long time before the creation of Israel. Even the idea of Theodore Herzl's idea of a Zionist state, that this would be a good way to keep us from reaching the enlightenment that we were promised with the Age of Enlightenment.
Yeah, I mean, it's a big can of worms you're opening up there, man. Yeah, yes, Herzl scandalously did sing the praises of many anti-Semitic movements in Europe because he said that these are great because it's really it's helping the Zionist cause. And he was even some of his letters had circulated where he expresses his interest that the Jews just become Catholic. I mean, the guy himself was not religious in any way. He was probably a tool of some other higher power. I'm pretty sure he was, but he was also an admirer of Cecil Rhodes and was writing letters to Cecil Rhodes saying how admirable Rhodes's example has been to demonstrate to the new Zionist movement on how to subdue the savages. In the case of Rhodesia and what a role model that is. Now the strange collusion between South Africa, apartheid South Africa, and Zionist Israel throughout the Cold War probably has something to do with that early connecting point. I don't think that the later strange convergence of interests that brought together a lot of elements of organized crime, unreconstructed Nazis, many of whom got to work organizing apartheid South Africa. They didn't just all go to Latin America. That's probably a factor that people don't want to talk about. The Dutch aspect of that, that brings in the British, the Anglo-Dutch component of the global banking system, the Bilderberg Group and other things probably deal with, touch on these things. But yeah, the
British East India Company, the Dutch East India Company, they've been exploiting the third world for a long time.
Yes, exactly. They're good at doing this, and they have certain mafia-like territorial rivalry at different times. But overall, there was an agreed-upon sort of merger of interest at a certain point around the Glorious Revolution when a Dutch king was installed in England. But
Orange.
So, they've been playing the Hofjuden, the court Jews, for a while. Shakespeare exposes a lot of this in the Merchant of Venice as far as the psych profile of a high-level, Jewish financier who's at the service of the higher oligarchs. Same thing for Marlowe in his Jew of Malta, which... Venice and Malta were two major hubs in that era, especially of global empire before the parasite moved into England and the Netherlands first. But, they're exposing, again, something which was emblematic of an entire psych profile of high-level court Jews that were used to carry out financial warfare and other things. Often it had an occult aspect to it, a Sabbatean aspect, but they were disposable at the end of the day, and they had a lot of grief and anger and resentment and hostility. And these were people who were of a certain profile, like you saw with these sociopaths in the Jew of Malta and the Merchant of Venice, Shylock. But people like the Rothschilds, the Sassoons, the Montefiore's, there's a variety of these. It's a certain, the Bronfmans, is a newer mini dynasty. They're tools in a tool basket in a chest that serve a higher geopolitical end, and it's what they want is not necessarily what the game is about. And I think they're ultimately disposable at the end of the day in this weird game that's being put onto us as humans. So, to what degree the whole Solomon Temple thing and the Greater Israel thing, to what degree is it going to manifest in the way that Jabotinsky and Benjamin Netanyahu dream of? I don't know. Is the thing set to blow? I suspect it is. I think that's part of the ritual that goes back to the days of Herzl and Edward VII, who was setting this thing up, with a bunch of new Templars that were later on becoming the vanguard of the Nazis in the 1860s. So anyway, those are just considerations I'm throwing out there.
But I mean, and it brings back to your original thought of being like the idea of back in the Middle Ages, in the Crusades, and they set up the kingdom of Jerusalem, right?
Yeah.
And how long did it last? Probably about as long as Israel will last. What do you think, Salim? Is that what we're looking at right here?
Can I ask real quick, Matthew? What is the connection? You mentioned Edgar Allan Poe. I'm curious about that. What is his connection to any of this? Edgar Allan Poe.
Oh, I think RB's more referencing my book, Edgar Allan Poe's Final Mystery, A Tale of Two Murders, that I just released a while ago, last year. And in it, I've got a section, the last 7 chapters deal with Arthur Conan Doyle, who was a member of the Hermetic Order, the Golden Dawn, and created his Sherlock Holmes character as a sort of a mockery of Inspector Dupin. And when you look at what in my book, I showcase several data points that puts Doyle, Sir Arthur Conan Doyle, in a high level position within British intelligence, especially around the psychological, the what is called the British Society for Psychical Research. They sort of steered a lot of the the spiritualist crowd, the sort of the spiritual warfare center. And he was
Sir Arthur Conan Doyle was famous for going to seances and stuff like that.
Oh yeah, he was talking to his dead people all the time. But he was also directly implicated in the Jack the Ripper murders. And in fact, the building that he creates for Doyle to live, for Sherlock to live in, is one building down. A year before the Jack the Ripper murders actually begin, he creates this building fictionally, but it exists in Whitechapel. Or near Whitechapel, and that becomes the building that ends up becoming used by one of the key Rosicrucians, who's working with Madame Blavatsky and the esoteric section of the Theosophists to do these ritual murders. And what I lay out in that book is that the same players like Charles Warren and who was at the head of the Palestinian Exploration Fund behind the Solomon Temple operation, and Walter Besant, who was his second in command under King Edward VII, they were overseeing the creation and guidance of the Theosophists, the Hermetic Order, that both sort of came out around the same period and doing the same things. And it seems like the Solomon Temple cult and the ritual murder of these prostitutes in a certain geometric pattern in Whitechapel were connected in several ways. So that was part of the story, and so
I didn't mean to take us down a completely different path. That's fascinating.
It is fascinating, and Matthew and Dawn, you have to have Matthew on your show one time.
I would. I've done a lot of stuff on Jack the Ripper. I have articles published on it. Yeah, that's fascinating.
Oh, you did? Oh, you go through Robert Johnston Stevenson and Rosalind. Sorry, I don't want to take this. I know this is geopolitical.
I go with Stephen Knight's theory, Jack the Ripper, the final solution. I think he got it right. I don't know if you agree with that, but that's my.
I think he added a lot of goodness to the thesis, but I think he missed certain things that we could talk about later.
Sure, that's perfect. That'd be a great show just to watch. But Edgar Allan Poe was one of my heroes growing up. I could never figure out why, because his subject matter was so macabre. But there's some universal truths that shone through what he wrote about, and his poetry was beautiful. So anyway, we'll go to Salim. I left you off. I wanted because I love your thesis about this. That modern day Israel is basically another recreation of medieval Kingdom of Jerusalem, and it will. And it is going to be facing the same fate.
You're telling me?
Yeah, I'm on to you, Salim. I want your thesis on the idea of the Kingdom of Israel, modern day Israel being a recreation in a way of the Crusader state, and the same fate awaits it.
Well, I mean, the British had their own myths and their own interests and their own imperial and religious issues that were involved in all of this. I mean, Barbara Tuchman's famous book Bible and the Sword, deals with the whole thing going back to almost the Arthurian legends, and the story about um, the descendants of Jesus, with his relationship with Mary Magdalene, rising and
Merovingian stuff.
yeah. So and so on and so forth. So I mean that is beyond my pay grade, or interest. I mean people can spin all sorts of things out of it, but the issue comes down to, in the 19th century, the Jews themselves, the religious Jews themselves, were not into this matter, right? It was a completely secular. Moses Hess was a secular. He was a socialist. He was a friend of, though senior to Karl Marx, he was a friend of Karl Marx and all of them. These guys, Max Nordau and others, they were secularists, socialists, and so on and so forth. And their ambition was driven by the rise of nationalism in Europe in the 19th century, and particularly in the 1848 springtime of nationalism, as somebody called it. I don't remember who it was, but it became the sort of a branding issue for those events. And it took a life of its own. It converged with the imperial interests. And of course, the Puritans in America, they saw themselves as building God's new Israel. That is that component of it in the white Anglo-Saxon Protestant history. But my interest is, or where it comes down to, since I pointed out to you Khomeini's letter of 1989 that needs to be read seriously and decoded and deconstructed in the context of who Khomeini was. Khomeini was a mystic. He was a jurist. He was a philosopher within the Islamic culture. And the Jews are a respected people. They're people of the book. And that aspect of it is fully at display. However, the Jews outside of Iran, particularly the Netanyahu crowd, the Likudniks, the settlers, how they vilify Iran or those countries or those societies, Muslim societies, which respect the Jews as people of the book and shared values of the Abrahamic faith, and have no problem. So the question of these Israel, what will happen? My analysis or my thinking on this matter, looking at it, is Israel will implode out of its own internal contradiction. It's bound to implode. I mean, Benjamin Netanyahu is fighting a war on 8 fronts. I mean, how can a country of barely 9 million people, fight war against in 8 front without America? And once America separates itself or distances itself from Israel, Israel is unsustainable. But that doesn't mean the Jews don't have a place in the Middle East, especially those Jews who do have connection to the Middle East, who are Sephardic Jews, Mizrahi Jews, Levantine Jews. And the East European Jews, they may find their way back to America, Europe, or...
Well, I want to quickly interject, Salim. Of course, we had that famous bombing of the Jewish synagogue in Iran by Israel. The Jews live in the largest Jewish community outside of Israel in the Middle East is in Iran.
But it's nothing new, RB. It has happened in Baghdad. It has happened in Cairo. I mean, the Lavon affair of Egypt is very well known to historians and others who study this thing. That was in the 1950s, to get the Jews of Egypt out of Egypt and to undermine Nasser's regime, just as they're trying to do that in Iran now. They did that in Baghdad. So that is what it is. I will add another layer of thing to consider if we come back to talking about these matters. It is Eastern European Jew, the Jews of the Pale of Settlement. They were not touched by enlightenment values. They never had what in Hebrew is called the Haskalah. It was the Jews of Germany, the Mendelssohns and others who participated in the age of enlightenment, and so the idea of universalism, of individual responsibility to the extent of the Protestant culture was imbibed by the Jews of Western Europe, not by the Jews of Eastern Europe. They never had enlightenment. They lived within ghettos, separate and excluded from the rest of the world. And so they are the Talmudic Jews. Benjamin Netanyahu is a Talmudic Jew. For them, the Goyim, the Gentiles, are all Amalek. It doesn't matter whether that Amalek is a brown man like me or a white man like my brother Don Jeffries. It doesn't matter. Both of us are Amalek. The Christian Zionists are in that sense crypto Jews. They have become crypto Jews, and they want to serve the master race. So they might not have any place in the Levant, and they will have to scurry out just as they scurried in, looking for their fortune. But the rest of the Jews, there should be no problem. I don't expect so. I mean, and the signature of that is in the place of the Jews in Iran.
I just wanted to show this map of the Pale of Settlement that Salim is referring to, and it's between Russia and Germany. And now this whole area brings in the idea of the Khazarian Empire when it fell apart, that all the people that were mass converted to Judaism due to the whims of an emperor, that they were forced out and they moved throughout here, and they weren't originally from Israel. They were mass converted in Khazaria, so they don't have any DNA connection to Israel. And these are the most of the people that are now that are called the settlers, correct?
Yeah. Primarily, I mean, in fact, the leadership are East European Jews, beginning with Chaim Weizmann, who replaced Herzl as the president of the World Jewish Organization that Herzl founded in the 1890s. Then Chaim Weizmann, who later on becomes the first president of Israel, Ben Gurion, Perez, Shimon Peres, the whole lot of them, Yitzhak Rabin, they're all from the Pale of Settlement. Benjamin
So what I want to also bring about is that if Israel does collapse and everything, the idea that Jews will be exterminated in the Middle East is complete nonsense, right?
Oh, that's what I'm trying to say. I mean, it is. I mean, the East European Jews, who is the spine of this movement, the Likudnik movement, the Gush Emunim, the people who did, for instance, that guy Baruch Goldstein, who did the Hebron murder in 1990. What was it? 1994, 1995, in the cave of Abraham.
Yeah, and a portrait of that guy who did that mass killing is in Ben Gavir's study.
Right.
He had it proudly.
That's right. Or the guy who went from New York, Meir Kahane, and later on came back to New York and was assassinated in New York by an Arab, I think an Egyptian Arab. So yeah, these people are the one, who are now. Well, of course, now we know that 93% of the Israelis have supported the genocide, but I don't think most of the leadership in the Arab Muslim world and in Iran have. I mean, it was Bernard Lewis who, the great Israeli or the Jewish, Anglo-Jewish historian, possibly one of the most important historians of the 20th century among the Jews, famously said in his book, Jews of Islam, that there is no theological basis of any animus between Muslims and Jews. There's no theological basis. The theological basis of conflict is between Christianity and Judaism.
Yeah, yeah. Because I want Matt to talk about this famously when the Spanish did the Reconquista of Spain and drove all the Moors and the Muslims out. The Ottoman Empire sent ships to Spain to help evacuate the Jews who are also being expelled at the same time. Correct?
Correct.
Yeah, absolutely. No, I wouldn't. I don't. I haven't really. What you just said. But there's generally a tendency historically towards collaboration amongst the core Abrahamic faiths. At the best of times, we see that there's a lot of synergy. It's only when you have these Satanists who are able to infiltrate and co-opt religious organizations that you see them behaving in their bringing out the worst possible attributes of every one of them.
Yeah.
That creates this witch's brew of chaos and division. But our tendency is generally towards, you see it with kids, right? Kids don't look at color of their skin or they just want to play together and cooperate. That's the natural human orientation. And a healthy adult, Muslim and Christian and Jew, if you're an emotionally integrated human adult, you will tend to look at your fellow man as a human first and act accordingly, assuming that they also want the best for their own kids. And you'll find all sorts of creative ways to work together and live together and help each other in times of crisis. But empires don't like that. So they find ways of getting us to get into revengist, eye for an eye, forever, forever cycles of blood. And you killed your great grandparents, did a misdeed to my great grandparents. So I got to kill your grandkids, like that type of shit.
Yeah. Hatfield and McCoy's done geopolitically, correct? So we're going to be ending the stream right now, but I want to go with a smile on our faces and a thing to think about. The Iranian AI Lego team has another video out. They are doubling down on building bridges between Americans and Iranians while depicting the U.S. government and the system as the real enemy. This is brilliant propaganda, but I think is very apropos, and I kind of go along with it. The music, lyrics, imagery are all designed to appeal to disillusioned Americans. Let's watch this together, folks. And I'm going to disable my camera so you can see more of it. Here we go. And then we'll go out on this and we'll have a quick discussion about it, and then everybody will say their goodbyes.
Same sun rising, but we're living in hell while the leaders are ringing the funeral bell. Love for the people, but the system must cease. From Tehran to DC, we're screaming for peace. I'm writing this from Tehran, looking up at the sky, wondering how many drones are gonna pass us by. Another meaningless war, another theater of blood, while our mothers are weeping, burying the young in the mud. It ain't just here, it's the soldiers you send across. Just 18 years old, another devastating loss. Families fractured for a line drawn in the sand. I see the tears in my city, I see the grief in your land. Oh, body wins when the youth are bleeding out on the street. Just the echo of boots and the tragic defeat. I got no respect for the suits sitting up on the hill, drafting up legislation that's a license to kill. You talk of freedom and justice, spreading the light, but all you spread is the terror in the dead of the night. Your politicians are puppets, strings pulled by the greed, selling weapons to anyone, ignoring the need. They sit in ivory towers completely out of touch, making billions on bombs while the world suffers so much. They point fingers at us, call us the axis of bad, while they fund the worst violence that the world ever had. Same sun rising, but we're living in hell while the leaders are ringing Now let's talk about Trump, the man painted in gold, tearing up the agreements, acting reckless and bold. Sanctions choking my people, couldn't get medicine in. Assassinated our general and you cheer for the win. You preach about morals, put the word on his back, but check the flight logs on Epstein, look at your tracks. Hanging out with the monsters, turning a blind eye while you tweet from your mansion and let innocents die. Your policies crushed us, tried to starve us to death, but our end is still breathing, we still got our breath. It's not you, America. It's the ones who lead you. Listen to my heart. I don't hate the Americans who are living in fear, to the working class people trying to make ends meet, to the students protesting, marching out on the street. We are one and the same, just trying to survive, just trying to keep our cultures and our families alive. I see you standing for justice, fighting the system of hate. It's your corrupt politicians that are sealing our fate. I send love to the citizens from coast to coast. You're victims of the same machine that hurts us the most. So I wrote this track to try to bridge the divide, to lay down the weapons, to swallow the pride. We don't need another missile, no more tactical strikes. We need conversations on what the future looks like. My purpose is peace, let the hostility cease. Let the eagles and lions finally sit at the feast. From the Persian Gulf straight to the American shore, let our generation be the one that finishes war. Put the guns in the dirt, let the healing begin, because if we keep shooting, then nobody will win. While the leaders are ringing the funeral bell. Love for the people, but the system must see. From Tehran to DC, we're screaming for peace. Peace. Not for the leaders, but for the innocent souls. For the next in line. For us. Signing out.
That's pretty powerful, isn't it? I really enjoyed that.
That's really
and
well
I think
done.
that's where we got to go. It's not we're not at war with each other. We're all working class people just trying to get by. It's the leaders who we have to get rid of. I'm speechless kind of about that. When I saw that earlier, I said, I got to share that with people. That is very powerful. And let's start with Don. We'll go to Matt.
Yeah, I think that puts a bow.
Yeah, they're those Lego things that the Iranians have been fantastic. It shows what we could do here in this country if we had that kind of satire allowed, and if we had that kind of real freedom of the press. Because I mean, it's obviously it's so easy to spoof it and to make fun of it and show how stupid it is. So go to Iranians. I mean, I'm glad they're doing it, and they're certainly. I'm sure it's irritating the American leaders because there obviously is no answer for it, and they're lame kind of Jon Stewart waving his hands or Bill Maher, trying to make jokes. It doesn't cut it. So yeah, that's great stuff.
And what do you think, Matt, about that?
Well,
Yep. No, that's the only way to fight this evil is you got to go above the chaos and above the emotional charge that doesn't create a space for creativity, and just show love with a creative vibe. And I think the way that they were able to do that, to just speak to the people and to really communicate with artistry, hilariously powerful, emotionally, healthy, emotionally charged honesty, is really, that's the best diplomacy. It's fantastic. And but I'm very impressed by what they're able to do with Lego.
And Salim, what do you think?
Well, it shows. I mean, if this is an American production, I don't know if it is. It shows the seeds of goodness is there. It's always been there. The question is, why was it lost in the first place? In the way it has been lost. About the Iranians, in the 1990s, the Iranian poet from 13th century, Jalaluddin Rumi, Maulana Rumi, who is revered among the Persian-speaking people around the world, that and Persian-speaking people are not only Iranians. The official language of India, British, before the India became the crown jewel of the British Empire, for whatever it means. The official language of India, northern India, was Persian, Farsi.
Yeah.
So Maulana Rumi was the best-selling poet in America. Coleman Barks, who translated Maulana Rumi's poem in a free verse style called Essential Rumi, sold in millions and millions of copies across North America among the English-speaking people. And still Rumi is one of the most widely quoted poet, as is the other one. He is not Persian, he's Lebanese Arab, but he's Christian, but Arab. Khalil Gibran, whose book, The Prophet, became the bestseller in America. So the seeds are all there. If it was not for, whether you call it the military-industrial complex that Eisenhower warned about, if it was not for people like John Hagee and Billy Graham's son, whatever his name is, Franklin Griffith, and so on and so forth, America would be a better place. If people were able to think this through, talk about it, ask the question, what does this all mean? What you guys are doing, that is, Washington is doing. There's no basis for this sort of thing to go on, especially we are now in the 21st century, and a multipolar world was going to take place. I mean, I've been reading about multipolar world as a student and then as a teacher, as a professor for the last 50 years. The whole idea of interdependence, mutual dependency, the revolution that took place, Marshall McLuhan talking about the global village. This is all, the seeds are all there, but where is the political voices, whether it is in United States, whether it is in Canada, or in the Anglosphere? I don't see any of that voice anymore.
Well, I think we're going to end it on that, but I do want to mention that I ran for the PPC in the last election, and I would have been one of those voices. But I only got 1.6% of the vote because, I'm not backed by any large money. So, Don, where can people find you and your work?
Well, you had a lot of people. I think you have 122 people on X right now. So any of you out there, you want to try to help me get my X account back, look for Monica Perez or Sam Tripoli. Other people have been texting, have been tweeting. That's what was ChatGPT said. That's my only chance left, because is to try to get up it to just basically at Don Jeffries. I need human intervention. I'm a blue check guy. I'm paying for that stupid account. I can't get it back, so I don't want to start all over again. So anybody can help me. Maybe the more people that do it would be great. Other than that, I'm shadow banned everywhere except Substack. It's Donald Jeffries at substack.com. I protest, just like my podcast. And you can subscribe to me there, and that's the best way to support me.
Thank you so much, Don, for your involvement. And Matthew, where can people find you?
Yep. They can go to matthewehret.substack.com for my daily Substacks, or CanadianPatriot.org for the movies, the Edgar Allan Poe movie, or there's a bunch, or books. Those are all there on CanadianPatriot.org.
Okay, and I do want to also mention that both Don and Matt, if you want to find their books, and you should, you can go to Amazon or you can go to Goodreads.com. You can just type into your search engine Don Jeffries or Matthew Ehret books. And Don, how many have you written now? You're at number 10 now?
And I have 10 published, yeah.
And Matthew, are you close to 10 yet, or are you over?
I just hit 10.
You just hit Matthew and Don are tied with 10.
We got the 10 plaque on the.
Wow, cool. Well, that gives you get a lot for doing that too. I'm sure you got the extra bonus for the 10th book, right?
And Celine, where can people find you and your writings? And how many books have you got published now?
Oh, I'm just in low numbers. 4. That's
shame. Do you have a Substack, Celine? Yeah, do you have like a Substack or website?
Yeah, you have a Substack.
What was that? I missed it.
Where can people find you at Substack?
Oh, yeah. Oh, okay. salimmansour.substack.com. People can find me.
Okay. All right. Thank you so much for all your contributions this week, guys. I hope the audience loved it. I want to quickly go through the live chat here and mention, hey, Get Up King, thank you. Thank you, Pie Master. Thank you, Linda Craig. Thank you, Greg Hume. Thank you, Revolution of the Minds. Thank you, Unfold. And everybody else who's been following along and supporting this channel. I do want to quickly do this because I always get grief because I forget to support me. If you really want to support me, because I have Don and Matthew and Sleem here, and they all know about my fight against the COVID mandates and restrictions that I took up, and I got hammered by the government of Saskatchewan. They gave me 8 tickets for $50,000 in fines. When income tax time came around this year, I went to my income tax guy and I paid $400 to get my income tax done, and I got $9,000 back from the income tax. Well, that's what I was supposed to get, but the government seized it. So any chance for me to have a vacation or anything like that this year is gone. So if you can support me, you can go to www.givesendgo.com/RBHam to fight me, to help me fight against this this ridiculous tyranny we have here in Canada. And I'm going to do I did a show last Saturday with Nico Legan. And we talked about the bills C8, C9, C16, and C22 coming through here to Canada to kill our free speech and bring about a mass surveillance state. We're in a big war here in Canada, so if you could help me, that'd be great. Thank you so much. It helps keep the lights on. Like I say, I work as a truck driver from Sunday to Friday, and I do my podcast once a week, and it takes quite an effort for me to get this thing going up and going and get all my prep done, because I only got like a couple hours after I get in off the road, and I make breakfast for my wife the next morning, and we go grocery shopping. I come back and I jump into my seat at 4 or 5 o'clock here, and I start trying to do the research and have all the videos ready to go. And I hope I do it in a comprehensive manner, in a way which may educate my audience. And please like, share, and subscribe to my podcast on Rumble and on YouTube. I want to quickly, I got to do that because I now have a YouTube channel. And I am trying to, yes, there we go. Boom. Subscribe to my YouTube channel. I'm trying to get more subscribers there, because I want to get big enough so they can ban me. Because right now, I want to have yes, I was banned by YouTube, because that seems to be it seems to be like the thing to be done. I mean, if you're really telling the truth, YouTube gets rid of you, or they ban you, or they demonetize you. But I don't have enough followers to be monetized yet. So do support me at youtube.com/RBHam Beyond the Pale. Thank you so much. Thank you, Dawn. Thank you, Matt. Thank you, listeners. And until next time, remember, conventional wisdom is simply conventional deception if you really want to get to the truth. Sometimes you just have to go beyond the pale. Thank you, everybody. Bye, all.
Thanks, God. Take care.
Bye.
All the best.
Thank you. Well, just me. Like I said, you can support me. And please like, share, and subscribe. I could really use your help. It's a tough thing to go through. All this stuff, being awake and aware and all this shit going on, and trying to help people out and wake them up to what's going on. But, it's my therapy once a week. I think about these things all week long, and once a week I get to bring in some awesome guests, talk about these things, the big picture, look at all the craziness going on in the world, trying to make sense of it. Does a world of help for me, and I hope it is a world of help for you guys. Thanks too. So I'll go back to my live chat. Thank you, Get Up King. Thank you. Oh yes, thank you. I pwned you. Thank you so much for being my moderator and for doing my YouTube channel and getting those shorts out there. That's just great. I hope some of them go viral, because I think I bring a lot of value to this from where I've come from in this 35 years long journey through the conspiracy theory world and stuff. And at the start, there's truther levels. There's first grade, second grade, third grade, fourth grade. Matt of Quantum of Conscience talks about this. And eventually you get to the point where you realize, my God, these things all pile up on each other, and you realize that we're living in some kind of a simulation, that a biological simulation. And eventually you got to get to the point where you have to, once you take in everything and you know it, you've got to bring about a positive message to it. And that's why I ended with that Lego video tonight, which was a positive message. Because, yeah, things look bad, but and sometimes things got to get worse before they get better. But the long arc of history does belong. It does tend to bend towards justice and truth. And we may not see it in our own lifetime, but we're on that path. And the enlightenment is going to come with some pain. And we got to endure that pain. And if you can help me endure that pain, please support me. Thank you so much. And I will go out with another theme song. Let me see, do my campaign banners. I'll get rid of this. There we go. Get rid of that for now. And get rid of that for now. And thank you so much for everything. Love you guys. Thanks for being here for me, because it's been a long battle, and it's nice to have a platform which I can talk about these things. And thanks for your support. Love you guys, and talk to you later. Bye.
Yeah. Beyond the pale. I extend eyes to warnings. They sent our sons to war. Yeah. Yeah. Beyond the pale. Yeah. They sent our sons to war, a cruel charade, a racket built on blood, where fortunes are made. They lie about the reason, spin tales so tall, while heroes die for profit and empires fall. Politics, a game, a circus of clowns, puppets on strings, they parade through our towns. They distract and divide us with hate as their tool, pitting brother against brother in a world they misrule. When the powers that be warn you not to go beyond the pale, then that's a sure sign there's more to the tale. When the powers that be warn you not to go beyond the pale, yeah, then that's a sure sign there's more to the tale. The anti-human agenda, plain as the day. They view us as bugs in their cold, heartless play. Eat insects, they sneer while they feast on the land. Depopulation's their goal with the tightening hand. Civil rights torn to shreds in the name of their peace. A police state rises where freedoms all cease. Gaslight us with propaganda, their lies never end. Twisting truth in their grip till our minds start to bend. When the powers that be warn you not to go beyond the pale, then that's a sure sign there's more to the tale. When the powers that be warn you not to go beyond the pale, yeah, then that's a sure sign there's more to the tale. Order out of chaos, their sinister creed. They spark the flames, then offer what we need. Economic stagnation, they choke out our dreams, while divide and conquer rips us at the seams. They fan every fracture, they stoke every fight, left against right, till we're blind to the light. Yet beyond the pale lies the truth they conceal, a world where we're free, where our hearts can still heal. When the powers that be warn you not to go beyond the pale, then that's a sure sign there's more to the tale. When the powers that be warn you not to go beyond the pale, yeah, then that's a sure sign there's more to the tale. So step past their warnings, their fences, their lies. See the world they've been hiding with wide open eyes. Beyond the pale, where the power grows frail, we'll reclaim our future and truth will prevail. Beyond the pale. Beyond the pale. When the powers that be warn you not to go beyond the pale, then that's a sure sign there's more to the tale. When the powers that be warn you not to go beyond the pale, yeah, then that's a sure sign there's more to the tale. beyond the pale. Yeah.